Okay. How do I do that? Okay. Should I join South Sudan and then you guys join Uganda then? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, no, 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 we're done. discussions in the end in Uganda. I think it sounded very useful. I think we had some very good discussion in the South Sudan team, so thank you so much for this. What we need to do just following this session is just to write up, because we actually have a shared work plan now until, for South Sudan we have a shared work plan until the 11th of July for this first process, and there'll be some initial farming activities as well. And for Uganda we have a work plan until the, whatever, 30th of June, or something like that. Because they'll finish a little bit before, it looks like. So it's good to sort of have that work plan drawn up, because really it's a work plan that doesn't have any buffers, because we wanted to have this finished before the summer. So there's no buffers, so there's no space really for having, you know, extended activities. So it's important that we draw it up and we just get started even already next week. Yeah. There were also some discussions about, I know we need to start making requests for financial transfers. And some areas, there's some rules that you have to have a DIP for the next, the rest of the year before, a detailed implementation plan for the rest of the year before you can do. That is not necessary, because we already have a work plan for the next, for April, May, June, you know, until the mid of July or so. So we already have a detailed work plan actually for the next three months, so that is enough for you to start requesting the financial transfers for now. Yeah. Of course, you may have to do additional to be able to engage with authorities, but you can look at that. Okay? So if we can ask someone, if I could ask someone from the South Sudan could volunteer for being the one who just writes up the work plan and shares it with me by tomorrow morning, and someone from the Uganda team to do that shared with me by tomorrow morning, that would be very much appreciated. Any volunteers? Please.
I'll share for South Sudan.
Thank you so much, Rani. Wonderful. You are our good figure, thank you. And you share for Uganda. Thank you so much.
Yes, I will.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then just before we go to break, George wants to say something. And just from my side, thank you so much for being so engaging in this. I think this was a really good session, and we've now got a concrete plan. So thank you for that.
Yeah, just a quick one. I was going to run through a slide on an environmental impact assessment, which is not something we spoke about in the actual proposal development, but it's something we need to do because in the risks we said that we may cause harm to the environment. So that's really important. But so is coffee. So what I'll do is I will send out, or even try and include it in a later session, just something that we need to do around maybe a NEET Plus assessment in each of the project sites, just to make sure we don't do damage to the environment and that we come up with mitigation measures for things that we plan. So I'll either send something around or include it in another slide, but I think we're after the break.
Okay.
Okay, I'll start the next session then.
Thank you so much. 14? Yeah. 15 minutes. Enjoy your break. Short break, 15-minute break. We also have Danish breaks, huh? The breaks are also Danish time.
we are here today to launch Strength Project, which is funded by Danida through ADRA Denmark. And it is one of the unique projects we are having, which is running for 2.5 years, starting 2025, ending 2027. And it is one of the unique projects that it is going to address issues which are affecting Uganda, even cross-border related with South Sudan. We are going to be implementing in areas of Lamo, in the Parabek settlement, in Kitgum, with those border sub-counties of Kitgum, like Namukora, then Karenga, and Kabong. This project is going to use multiple approaches to see that we mitigate weather and climate-related shocks which are affecting the population. We find that all conflicts we have in the areas of operation, they are related to climate or weather. For example, the area is suffering from the conflict of cattle rustling, and at the same time, the problem of scarce use of natural resources. This project is aiming at improving and having methodologies of improving natural resource use. ADRA has engaged with different partners, for example, FAO, to come up with approaches like farmer field school and agro-pastoral field school. We use approaches like farmer market school. Here we are able to analyze the causes of raw production. We analyze the causes of conflict. We analyze the causes of climate change. We analyze the causes of land degradation. In many cases, we find that women and children are affected because many times they are left out when discussion on solution are left out. But with the methodologies we are going to use, they will be part of those deciding what to do. And another element which is very unique with this project, we have joint activities with ADRA South Sudan, whereby they can be able to address issues at Uganda side and issues at Sudanese side. At the end of the day, we are able to have a workable solution. We have a team which is being supported by from ADRA Sudan. We have ADRA Denmark supporting us. We have Reproductive Health Uganda, they are supporting us. Wilt Hunger. We have that powerful consortium, and we are sure that this project will have a good impact on the population we target in northern Karamoja, together working with the local government structures. Thank you very much. We are partnering with the local government structures. We are the local government. They are not here. Oh, sorry, that's mine. They are not here with us. She's a partner from Reproductive Health Uganda. Those one I mentioned them. Okay, fine. Hey. Okay. Manya gange nze Kiberu George William, nkola n'ekitongole kya ADRA Uganda nga manager ku head office. Ndi wano nga ndi musanyufu olw'okubanga olwaleero tutandise project endala egenda okuyamba abantu okubeera nga basobola okukwataganya emirimu ekigenda okukendeeza obulumi n'okufiirwa bizinensi ebiva ku mbeera y'obudde eyonoonese ennyo mu Karamoja n'ebitundu ebyawukana ne Sudaani. Tulina projekiti eno ng'egenda okukola ku butonde bw'ensi, egenda okukola ku bintu ebivaamu ensimbi abantu bye bakola. Tugenda kubeera nga tukola n'abakyala ababonaabona okunoonya amazzi, okunoonya enku, okunoonya ebyokutunda basobole okufuna ssente nga pulojekiti eno egenda kubayamba nga tukwatagana na bannaffe abali eb'e Sudaani n'ab'e Uganda. Obubbi bw'ente mu kitundu ekyo bubaddemu okumala ebbanga ne busumbuwa abantu okubanga tebalina kye basobola kukola. Pulojekiti eno tugenda kukwatagana na bannaffe abatoposa aba South Sudan ne abakaramoja mu Uganda okulaba nti ebizibu ng'ebyo tutuula ne tubiteesaako bisobole okukendeeza ku bulumi abantu bwe balina. Tugenda kukolagana n'ebitongole ebirala nga Reproductive Health Uganda, tugenda kukola ne Wilt Hunger, tugenda kukola ne ADRA South Sudan, tugenda kukola ne local government, tugenda kukola ne ADRA Denmark okulaba nti abantu tubakwataganya ne tukendeeza obulumi obuva mu kubeera nti obutonde bw'ensi bwonoonese ate n'abantu tebannaba kwagala mirembe basobole okubeera ng'ebyo ebintu tubikolako abantu babeere n'obulamu obulungi. Mwebale nnyo. Oli omukyala. Kamugamba ajja kujja.
We want to ensure that in a climate project we don't cause harm, or as Karina was saying earlier, we make sure we do less harm to the environment. So we at ADRA Denmark, we try and do this whenever we assess that there will be an impact, a negative impact on the environment, and then if we determine that the case, then we will go ahead and do an assessment, which is the tool we use is NEAT Plus, or a modified version of NEAT Plus. I don't know, it'd be quite interesting to hear from the different partners if they use other tools or if they would be comfortable with us suggesting the NEAT Plus and to do the environmental impact assessment itself. But essentially what we want to do is, before project activities start, is to conduct one. So the NEAT Plus is sort of a rapid assessment tool for those who aren't familiar. It's nowhere near the level of detail that Karina was going in for conflict sensitivity. It's more of an Excel questionnaire that will you sort of input the different fields. And it will, once you finish the questionnaire, it will then give you sort of a series of mitigation measures. So by doing that, we will then sort of develop these mitigation measures and implementing them throughout the project. And as part of the reporting, I think it'd be really good to show Danita that we do take this seriously in a climate project. And we're sort of taking all these into account. So I think that's probably just a fly-in, and I would suggest that maybe seeing as we're in the inception phase, it'd be good to just kick this off maybe already next couple of weeks. But Karina, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to say, how many in here have tried to do a NEET Plus before? A NEET Plus? Who in here has tried to do a NEET Plus before? One has.
So it stands for Nexus Environmental Assessment Tool, I think it is.
Yeah.
Plus.
Okay, so it's actually a little bit of a challenge if you haven't tried it before. It's a very large tool, and it's developed for humanitarian emergency settings. So what we could do is we could download, because it's all rural settings that we are in anyway. So we could download the tool and cut away the stuff that you don't need, so that we only have the stuff that you do need in it. And then I think if you have questions, maybe you can reach out to George, so we can help you, guide you through the tool, because it can be a bit daunting if you don't know how to do it, if you haven't done it before. It's not a massive exercise. You can do it in probably half a day with your project team and maybe some experts, like technical experts, within the different things. So it's not a massive thing, but it is important to do it.
It doesn't have to be NEET Plus though. I mean, we use it, but are there any other tools that you guys had used in your various offices to do environmental assessments that you would?
Environmental impact assessment.
Okay. You just heard?
Yeah, there's a WFP environmental and social impact assessment tool that they also use.
Okay.
Also, it's a bit tedious.
Yeah.
Very long, several cases that you have to fill in, and then you have to then extract the report out of that, which you can present.
Yeah. But is that, do you feel like that's more suitable to use than the NEET Plus maybe? I don't know.
Because I have not
tried
sight of this one, so I wasn't very familiar.
Why don't you share that with us, and then we can have a look and we can share both tools in an adjusted format where we've taken away what you don't need to focus on. Yeah?
Or is this one similar to the conflict sensitivity assessment tool?
In terms of the way it's set up, yes.
It does all the, okay, the linking of this.
Yeah.
So it's different because with that one now, it's actually a questionnaire that we have to print and then we go and make it. Yeah, so that's
Well,
why I became.
the thing about NEET Plus is that it's sort of, a prerequisite for this is that you have the knowledge and information. If you don't have, you might need to also go and ask communities questions. So maybe it's a good idea to have both, and you can see how, you can start with one and then you can integrate the others if you need it. Yeah? Maybe we do it that way. But what we can do is we can definitely weed away, like, we're not doing emergency life-saving assistance, we're not doing shelter, there's lots of things that we can take away so you don't get confused about that.
So for this, you only need to do sort of the environmental sensitivity questionnaire, and then you can leave out the other things and then go straight to the food security, livelihood, sort of agriculture section. But it's quite straightforward. It's designed for humanitarian context.
Advocate, it's actually really useful because we've gone through it before in the project activities and realized that there are some things we could change. So I can give an example. We were working with child-friendly spaces in Upper Nile, and one of the things we were doing was we were procuring toys for the space from the Ethiopian border, and we realize
that we have in our organizations and that we are obliged to follow from our donor from Danida. And so this all partners to this agreement will actually promote and implement safeguarding measures in accordance with standard policies. So this is one of the important things, is that we ensure safeguarding of the beneficiaries for those that we work with. And just as a basic, there's no surprise, none of us must be on the list of terrorist organizations. I don't think we are. Secondly, we also have to, whenever we enter into contracts with suppliers, etc., there's a phrase that we have to put in to this agreement, and I'm not going to read it, but it's just to make sure that everyone, including the subcontractors, are aware that if they are, are involved with corruption or try to, pay anyone illegally, it will have repercussions. And actually also for us, because if we do not follow these procedures, and if we are found to be negligent, we can actually lose the contract with the need. So it is quite serious that we follow these rules. And then also important is that all staff, they should be able to, without reprisal, they should be without fear of reprisals if they feel that something is not right in the way the project is being implemented, if they feel, someone is misusing funds or is mistreating beneficiaries or other staff, they should be able to report that without fear of any reprisals. And with this, all staff, they also have to comply with safeguarding procedures. And all staff, they are to sign, that they will comply with these procedures, and it's also part of the agreement that the policies, the safeguarding policies that we have, code of conduct and the safeguarding code of conduct. So this is something that is important, that so we know that all staff, when they start working, they are aware of the code of conduct, so they can't come afterwards and say, you know, I didn't know, but they are aware beforehand. And also importantly, if something is reported, this goes with, you know, if there's illegal conduct, but also if there's misuse of funds, it is really, really important that this is reported as soon as it is known. Because if we do not, it is a serious breach of trust, no less, but also with the agreement with Danita, we have to, within 48 hours, for instance, if we are aware of some misuse of funds, we have to report it within 48 hours. And there are also like specific forms how you can report that, so you know what kind of information is required. So again, very important. Then also the beneficiaries that we work with, they should also be, they should have access to information, but that also means they should be aware that the information exists, that they can if they have any complaints, if they feel that they are not treated right or whatever, they should know how can they complain, who should they complain to, and they should know that this information is available and where they can find it. Also, you know, this day and age with data protection, beneficiaries should also know if the personal information, if we are to collect personal information, how we treat that, how it's stored, and what we do with it. And we have to, again, comply with international regulations on this, data storage, etc. So to make sure that the information that we gather is not being used by people who should not use it, because sometimes it is quite confidential, the information that we gather. So we have to make sure that we store it right and we use it right, and that people whose data we collect are aware of what kind of data we collect from them. Then also, when we hire people for the projects, you know, we have to make sure that they're hired in a transparent way, and that we hire them based on their skills and knowledge. And I hope the same goes throughout your whole organization. So it means you cannot hire your cousin, you should not hire your best friend from church. It has to be a transparent recruitment. So we are sure that we hire the best person possible. So this is, again, one of the rules that we have to apply by. So if one of us comes and visits your office and say, okay, how did you recruit this program officer? You should be able to document, okay, we advertised in the local papers, we received, you know, X number of applications, we had a recruitment committee, and this is the basis on which we recruited this person. So you are able to document that this person was actually recruited in a transparent manner. Now, there are reporting to be done, and like two sets. There's like the narrative reporting, what kind of activities have we carried out, what kind of results did we achieve, how do we help the beneficiaries, etc. But there's also, which is of course important to me, reporting all the financial transactions. And for the finances, I'll talk a lot more about that on Wednesday. But financial transactions are to be reported monthly, not in the month of January, but otherwise every month. And the thing is, it has to be, we need to have the data by the 15th of the following months. So let's say from March, we would need to have the data on the 15th of April. Now you might say, oh, we need to get, you know, we're still missing one invoice or whatever. It's not so important that because we do what kind of accumulative reporting. So let's say you reported for March and you find out when you report for April, oh, there was an invoice which belongs to March. We didn't get that. You still record it in March, and then we're looking at the accumulative figure. It's only once we get to December where we, I guess that's for all of us, it should be for all of us, that all the financial data for the whole year is part of our own audit, our own financial accounts. So there it's really important that when we get the December report, that it is actually for the full year. And for that, for the month of December, we are more lenient. It doesn't have to be on the 15th of January. It's more important that when you say now we have all the data, then you report, because it's a part of our annual account. So that's important that that's in place. And we have the annual progress reports, which does also cover the financial data, but it's also the whole what's happening in the project. So so you report to us, and then we accumulate it all into one big comprehensive report, right? These are like the reporting, and if you have any questions on that, yeah, Karina. Yeah.
Is the for the narrative,
Yes.
for the financial, obviously each organization
Yes.
provides every month. For the narrative, now I'm just asking it openly. Is there an idea that we are trying to get one joint from the Uganda teams and one joint from the South Sudan teams, instead of getting one from each partner? Because a lot of the activities will be overlapping. It's a request also to the room whether that's possible or not. Would that be possible? Huh? It's per consortium partner. So it's, they can't do it for the country. So it has to be a per consortium partner. They can't do it for the country.
Well,
No.
it requires more conditions.
It was yeah, I know, but I mean, they're doing those joint activities. Okay. Okay, but I think they're saying it's per consortium partner, so not actually even per implementing partner, but per consortium partner. Okay.
No, I maybe they should be like an organization.
Yeah.
Because, for example, Dry Uganda reports to Denmark, we report to DFPA. So now the joint report for Uganda becomes a bit tricky. Yeah, especially when reporting to different entities. Yeah, it's better for organization.
Yeah.
So we're doing it per consortium partner.
By consortium
Yes.
partner.
Yes.
Yes.
So not per organization per such, but per consortium partner.
Consortium.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Good point. Good point.
It's a
Then
bit tricky. Because for us, South Sudan, we also want to track the project internally, not only sending the report outside. So we'll have our internal report coming also. But then maybe as a consultant we can. In the TOFI, which was a consortium also, we have individual organizational reports that are then consolidated at the country level. Our role was to consolidate for all the partners, and then we send one report to like country report. Yeah, but these are all lab projects.
But that's not the approach apparently that's wanted here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to do both. So ADRA will do one, then Tonga Hilfe will do one, and DFPA will do one. Actually, ADRA will have to do two.
Two.
It's two
Yeah.
different
Uganda and
countries.
South
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So it's not at the consulting level.
Not for ADRA, for others.
Now, once you start implementing, you made a budget for the program and for year by year. Once you start to implement and you find out that for one reason or another it's difficult to implement one output, or you find out that another output is much more in demand and much more important, then you are allowed to relocate between budget lines, and there's you can move up to 30% of the smallest budget. So let's say you have one output where you have a budget of $10,000, then you are actually allowed to move 30% of $3,000 to another output. We can do that without having to ask the leader for approval of this. So it makes it very flexible. And if it's more than 30%, of course, then we have to inform the leader and ask for permission. But generally, it's not a problem. But as long as we have good reasons for it. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I don't fully, because you're saying the top say reallocation between the main budget lines, so
Yeah.
output.
Yeah.
And then you're saying of the smallest budget lines, output.
So let's say you have output 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
First one is 100,000, second one is 50,000, and the third one is $10,000.
Uh-huh.
And then you say, okay, we want to reallocate from from between output 3 and 1.
Yeah.
So output 3 is the one with the lowest budgets, and so you're allowed to take 30% of that budget and reallocate to another output line.
And what if I wanted to now allocate from the 100,000 to the 10,000?
It's still just the 30. It's 30% of the smallest.
It's of the smallest.
Yeah.
But what if it was to output 2?
Yeah, it's between the two that you are working with. Yeah. So if it's between the one with 100,000, one with 50,000, then you want to move from the 50,000, then you can take 30% of that, which is kind of called.
And in terms of the activity lines under the outputs, we can move freely.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just at output level, so it's sort of like semi-aggregate. So it makes it very flexible to work with as you get operational and you find out you want to reallocate. And also be aware that this is the total budget. So let's say you find out, okay, we want to focus on output 3 in year 1, and then sort of reallocate between years. That's not the problem. It's only if you do it between outputs. So there's quite a bit of flexibility built into this. The only thing that we don't want to see is that you say, okay, we want to move budget from activities to administrative costs. That's something we don't like. Yeah. So because that's it's often there's a pressure. You want to cover your administrative costs, but you cannot move between activities and administration.
And
I still love me. I'll take you a bit back because I know some of the discussions we have in our in-country, forum to discuss among ourselves as consortium partners. But if we are going to the government, like we have discussed about going to now tell the government about the program, we're not going to talk about other separate. This is a country program for us in South Sudan.
Yeah.
So at some point we'll be required to also report like that. We cannot report, others reporting all about this building or conflict or whatever, and this, no. So I think within the country consortium, we'll have to find a mechanism of consolidating our report so that we're able to share with the stakeholders in the country as a country program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize, I mean, this project is, of course, just a part of your total operation. So I'm only talking about the budget for this project. So there's no, if you find out you have more administrative cost than you budgeted, then it's a problem.
I took you back to the issue of the reporting.
Narrative.
Narrative
Talking about
report.
the narrative.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, Simon. There is an issue of the narrative reporting. With the structure we're proposing,
Yeah.
there's an issue with not being so clear within the country, which we will have to somewhat find a way to address.
Yeah, we see how to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because it implies somehow that there is some person in charge that of consolidating the different reports.
Yeah.
We don't really have that. So
Well, that's a good point, Simon. We'll work on
we need
it.
to follow up
Yeah.
on that.
We would love to discuss that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Good point.
But on just a point of clarification on what you were saying, Michael, about administrative costs,
Yeah.
because people understand administrative costs differently.
Yeah.
So maybe you can clarify what you mean by administrative costs.
I
because it's not the
I
same
will
as what
come
we're-
back. I can come back to, on Wednesday. But generally,
but just people understand.
the way that we structure the budget, you have the output costs. Then you have what we call HR1, which is direct project staff. You have transport and meal.
Yes.
They are all considered part of the direct activity costs. Then you have what we call HR2, which is staff that are at headquarters typically. You have what is generally called administrative costs, which could be anything from operating the office generator to whatever. And then you also have investments. So if you have to do investments, this project is not heavy on investments, if anything. So it's not the problem here. And then we have in our projects that our partners, they can then take a 7% overhead of the turnover for that the period they're working with, and that's also an administrative cost. So, but I'll come back to that more on Wednesday if we have more questions on that.
Some people call it direct project cost and indirect project
Yeah.
cost. The point is we don't want to move from direct to indirect.
So as much as possible should go to the beneficiary. So that's like the general idea. Yeah. And then on the reporting, it was on the previous slide, but I just want to mention that it says also audited financial statements. Your organization will have to have your annual accounts audited, but for this project, it is the requirement as it is now is for it to be audited once the project is complete. So it's not like if you're used to working with SPA projects, they have to be audited annually. This one only has to be audited at the very end. So that's how the guidelines are now. If the NIDA changes the guidelines, because the guidelines that we are following here are actually it's been some years since they were revised last. So if the NIDA makes a revision saying you're required to do an annual audit also of this project, then of course we'd have to comply, but the cost of the audit will be covered by the project. So it's more work, but it's not going to cost other than that. So that was generally on the compliance parts, that we have to follow the policies and procedures. And if you have any questions on that, you feel free to ask. I'll see if I can answer. Because if not, Benedict.
I have a question
Yes?
for Michael.
Oh dear, let's see if I can answer that one, Thomas.
No, it's just to clarify for everyone. So question number one, when do you expect the first monthly financial report? Is it already in April, or do you want to wait a bit until May or June, since we don't have a lot of expenditures at this point?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think realistically you start to pick up in April, is that right? That's not so much in March, it will mainly be April, then you start. So that would mean the first financial report we would need by 15th of May, and then onwards. And as I say, we don't need...
Covering April?
Yeah, covering, yeah. So from the project start until the end of April. Yeah?
Perfect. Second question. Now you described how much and what can be reallocated between different budget lines without the NIDA approval. How about internal approval? I mean, it might not be the case that the implementing partners can reallocate without discussing this internally in the consortium or with the consortium partner. How is the process?
Yeah, for that, in the agreement, there's no like formal requirement that you need approval from us, but we do have monthly meetings where we discuss programs, issues, etc. So I would be very surprised if you made a reallocation without anyone knowing. So of course you just say, well, this is happening, we need to focus on output 1 instead of 3, so we're changing the scope a little bit. So of course I would expect that to be communicated. And also because we do budget monitoring, so if you do a reallocation, we need to know, because we keep track on spending compared to budget. So of course the main thing is the bottom line, but also we do also keep track on spending on based on outputs. So we need to know, and we expect you to, as part of this, just sharing the communication. So we want this project to be built on trust. So even though we have rules that we have to follow, we, in Danish we have like a saying trust is good, but control is better. I don't know if it translates to English, but actually I don't believe that very much. Control is required, but trust, if you can build on trust, it's what makes the work much smoother. Of course, if you lose trust, that's a problem, because then you are really then you'll be hit with a lot of control. So we want that mutual trust, communication, sharing of information, challenges, and I will also underline that on Wednesday. But if you have anything you're unsure of, discuss it with us. We much rather discuss problems and issues beforehand than after the fact when things have crashed. Right? Benedicte, over to you on safeguarding.
Yes, thank you. So there's now, Paul Michael has already mentioned in headlines some of these things, but for every project that we are co-implementing from either Denmark or supervising from Adremak or in any things we do, we need to be aware of some specifics like safeguarding. And I'm sure that everyone in this room knows about safeguarding, but to be on a safe side, we do a short presentation on what we mean by safeguarding. And afterwards also complaints mechanisms. These are some of the core things that is not much about what we implement, but rather how we implement things. So I want to start with showing a video, just to change a bit the environment. I hope that it will work. So I'll stop sharing this first. Let me see if I can do that. Stop sharing. We need Thomas to see as well.
All communities experience violence and abuse within families or the wider community. When a civil society organization arrives to work with a community, the organization itself can exacerbate existing patterns of harm and abuse, or indeed bring new forms of harm. Abuse and harm caused by civil society organizations can be categorized as neglect, physical or emotional harm, or sexual abuse, or can come in the form of harassment. Harm and abuse caused by the organization typically includes 1. Abuse perpetrated by staff or people contracted by the organization. 2. Programs or services which may exacerbate existing or cause new harm within families or communities. For example, tensions may be caused if it is not clear why certain members of the community are receiving goods or services whilst others are not. 3. Communications and media which can bring new and unwanted attention to the community or to individuals within the community, particularly when a story about an individual shares their personal details or stories reinforce negative stereotypes. Sexual harassment or other forms of harassment within the workplace that is experienced by staff or volunteers is now also considered within the scope and definition of safeguarding. To protect people from sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment, and other harm and abuse caused by civil society organizations, many organizations are putting in place measures to prevent and respond to these abuses. Some organizations refer to these measures as protection from sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment, or PSEAH. Others refer to the measures as safeguarding. Safeguarding measures concentrate on 3 core areas: prevention, reporting, and response. Prevention activities include creating safe workplaces through fostering an organizational culture which promotes diversity and challenges inequality. Ensuring that there are policies, procedures, and a code of conduct in place. Making sure that references are received for all successful candidates during recruitment. Making sure that all staff know what sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment is, and that they behave appropriately at all times. And finally, preventing abuses by civil society organization programs or communications means working closely with the community members to make those programs safe and give consent for communication activities. Reporting makes sure that all organizations have a system so that staff and anyone who interacts with the organization can report an abuse or a suspicion in a safe and confidential way. It is important to have various means to make a report so that people of different ages, genders, nationalities, and abilities can do so. Phone lines, in-person help desk discussions, and emails are some examples. Organizations also have a duty of care to receive reports that concern harm and abuse within families or communities that are not caused by the organization. However, the response to these differs from the response taken when it is the organization involved in the abuse. Response means making sure that all reports are handled in a way that is appropriate, confidential, and in line with procedures. Where immediate support is needed for the survivor, for example, urgent medical care, links to the nearby social services should be made, and independent investigations should be conducted where necessary. Cases or concerns which relate to harm and abuse within families and communities must be referred to community organizations, support services, or authorities where it is safe to do so. Safeguarding communities and staff within the organization helps to ensure that the organization delivers good quality work and creates a workplace which is productive and enables everyone to reach their full potential.
When you come back.
Okay. We go back to the presentation. This one. Great. Okay, so that is, in sum up, what safeguarding is about. So it's both about us providing a safe working environment for each other, for staff, volunteers, whoever is part of the program and project, but also for the communities that we work within. So summing up, we all have the right to obligate to report sexual misconduct or other complaints or concerns. But the important part is that we also have the obligation. So if we see anything that is not okay, we actually have an obligation to report. And only report, not necessarily follow up. We have to know where to report, and then someone will take care of it from there. Yeah, so immediately means ideally before 24 hours, actually. So as soon as possible. And yes, all the policies, the safeguarding policies that we have, they apply when we are at work, but also when we are not at work. So it's really not only a matter of how we implement projects, but also our conduct ourselves. We are having what's called a survivor-centered approach. I think that's the new word for victim-centered approach. It's more of an empowered term. We respect the survivor and his or her dignity and wishes. We believe what the survivor is telling us, and we try to empower him or her. And then we also respect if that person doesn't want to have the situation investigated. These are the safeguarding policies that ADRA Denmark has. They're all based on the ADRA network's different policies. All these are, of course, accessible to all of you. I believe that maybe Veteranhjælp also has some, and VLPA also. Safeguarding policies, I guess every organization has some. And I hope that you're familiar with the ones of your organization. So the important thing is not that you know ADRA Denmark's policies. The important part is that you have the policies and that you are familiar with them. It's very much about having robust safeguarding systems, as the lady of the video also mentioned. So one thing is having the policies and procedures in place. That's, you may say, the easy part. You can draft them and put them in a shelf and forget all about them. So we also have to have them living. It goes for safe recruitment when we recruit staff, that we check up if they have, if they have been condemned priorly, or if they have any records, criminal records, stuff like that. So we check up on the candidates before signing contracts. It's about training, so that we keep all staff updated about how they're expected to behave. Same goes if we subcontract anyone, if we do contract consultants, or if we do procurement, that we also know that we work only with companies who don't break these rules or this conduct. When we do programming, that we ensure that our approach to the program is within the rules of safeguarding. That we have complaints mechanism in place so that people know how to put complaints if they have any. And yes, the confidential, survivor-centered response to complaints is obviously key. So there's a difference between complaints and whistleblowing. Complaints is when you have experienced something that you want to complain about, and you put a complaint. And whistleblowing, if you sense something is going on, you might not have proof, but you think there's something bad or something rotten here that someone needs to look into. Then you can put an anonymous complaint also, which is, would be like whistleblowing. So these are some of the channels of reporting that we have in ADRA Denmark. And actually, if it's serious cases of corruption or of sexual exploitation or abuse, you actually have to report to our Secretary General or one of these channels, because we also have the obligation of informing the NIDA if such things happen. So within 24 hours, either to our General Secretary, who's our safeguarding focal point, to any of the department of directors. Could be Paul Mikael, or it could be Jon, our program director. Or if not comfortable with open reporting, then there's this website where you can report anonymously. This will go directly to the chairman of our board.
So,
yes?
so basically that means that goes for everyone here, also the ones that are not our direct partners, also the ones for the other consortium partners.
Yes, if it's related to this project, because we have to report that back to the NIDA.
So that, I think that's
But this is in case of corruption cases or serious sexual exploitation and abuse cases.
But
Not, I'll come back to more common complaints, but these are the serious cases we have to report back to the NIDA. So this is also a different way of putting a complaint. This goes then to ADRA International or the Adventist Church. I actually don't think this is relevant for most of us here, only maybe our ADRA colleagues. Yeah. So this is different ways of posing complaints that are not that serious. Particularly that one, the last one, through prior to confidential interview with a visiting ADRA Denmark staff member during a monitoring visit. Yeah. So that brings me then to complaints mechanisms, which is, well, a more broad term. So, yes?
can you ask clarifications from the others, just to be
Yes.
sure?
Yes, maybe it will be more clear when I go through this,
Okay,
but
we can wait.
if it's about those.
It was about the other ones, but I can
Yes.
wait if you want me to wait.
Okay, but yeah, that's
Right.
another.
What are the serious cases and non-serious cases?
So here I try to differentiate in this one. If we have concerns from someone we work with about the quality of the program delivery, or if someone from the target group felt discrimination when the selection of beneficiary, or if the quality of the activities are not good, then the complaint, it's not that it's not serious, but it's something that you can do something about immediately from the program. It's not illegal. It's something that can be improved. It's just about how we perform as a program. So we want to encourage everyone to put complaints if they think program is not being implemented appropriately. Because then we can do something about it. Then there is the serious complaints, which is about fraudulent acts, concerns about some misconduct of staff, harassment or bullying. These are maybe not illegal acts, but they are still sensitive. So they have also to be reported. But then the child abuse and sexual exploitation and abuse also on adults, those are now illegal acts. Corruption is also illegal. So those things need to be reported immediately. The red ones.
I have to ask it now, I think, because I think it's important to also understand what if it's only and there's a difference between whether we've physically witnessed and seen and can evidence that this happened, and whether we just have a suspicion about it.
Yes.
Are we also supposed to report suspicions within 24 hours?
Yes, but then that's the trickiest question, because sometimes a suspicion is how do you see, built up over time. So as soon as you feel, okay, that this is really, now something must be wrong there, you put the complaint.
But I think the point is to underline that a suspicion you also have to report, because I think sometimes we feel like we have to have it confirmed before we can report.
Yes.
But the point of reporting it is for examination. And it will be kept confidential, so it's not going to mark that person in case the suspicion was incorrect. So I think in that sense it will be handled in a very sensitive manner, and you don't have to worry about that then leaving an unrightful mark on the person. I think that's very essential to sort of get that straight.
Yes. Sarah?
Can we agree to move fraudulent act and harassment down here?
Yeah, I think so.
Because in the definition of PSEAH, harassment is already there.
That's also illegal?
Yeah, I was thinking that it should come here. Down
Harassment.
here, under the red, yeah.
Okay.
Harassment and the fraudulent act. Because corruption is a
Is
big
a
issue.
fraudulent act?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless Paul is comfortable with that.
I hadn't thought of it as corruption, but in that sense, yes, it's
Yeah,
also
it's
done.
fraud.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's good. Yes.
If I just may add one thing, it's about corruption. The leaders sometimes they complain to us saying, we are worried that you have so few cases about corruption. Are you missing something? So just to say that if you find out that something is not right, do not hold back on reporting, fearing that you will look bad and the leader will punish you or we will punish you. The main thing is that you are open about what's happening and that you are handling any case that you might find, handling it in a transparent and proper manner. And just to add to that, if you have a suspicion about a corruption case, it's very important that you, in the investigation, involve someone who is independent of your organization, so that no one can say afterwards, you were just whitewashing an internal thing. It has to be someone who is independent.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't know, because we need to discuss. There are some bad lessons we have learned also. Karina, you can attest to this. We are not on the same level with the community. And there are things we have reported, and they are true. But you find the whole community comes against us. Even including, like, my daughter is abused, but I also go and say, this is our culture. And they come to fight us, basically. So there are lessons that we have learned that it can actually be very difficult unless the community is raised to some standard to understand these things. Otherwise, it is very difficult. It puts some of our staff at risk. There were staff who had to move from one place to another because now the community all came and said they were the ones who reported this thing to you. So there was actually going to be retaliation against them, and there's revenge killing, there's revenge what, and all this in the communal conflict. So I don't know at what point we can get time to discuss this without a Denmark based on the lessons learned and how we can, the issue is that we need to bring the community to some level. Because they are fighting back that this is their culture. My daughter has to be married. What is wrong with you? This is my daughter.
I think just because there are two separations of things here also. Because there's one is if the community are doing if the communities are doing a child abuse, of course we have a responsibility to report it to the authorities. But then
together with the authorities.
But then there's all these kind of issues that then evolve from that, which we have to deal with. But we still have the responsibility to report that. But then there's the other issue, which is what safeguarding is about, which is about making sure that no one who's affiliated with us does any of it, which is a separate issue, right? And I think the one you're talking about is the first issue. There's another issue over here as well.
There was another issue also in the past.
I know,
which was,
but that's where they were then refusing as well.
Yes.
But if anyway, it's tricky.
Because the family that was affected, they are in the same side with the perpetrator now against others. It became very dramatic.
But I mean that is unfortunately. I mean we have responsibilities that we have to adhere to, and that can actually ultimately have the consequences that we have to move staff to another area.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty tough, but that can be the way it is, because we just cannot compromise on those standards.
No. I don't have any good solution, actually.
No, what I'm saying is, we need to reflect on the lessons learned. Because there are lessons that are learned.
Yes.
We need to reflect on them. We need to get time to reflect on them.
Yes. It's very relevant.
Yeah.
Because there's rules and reality, and sometimes it's difficult to make them match. Okay, so complaints mechanisms, we all need to have them in place. I also think you all have. The feedback, this is the circle of how it works with feedback. Receive a feedback or a complaint, it's acknowledged and recorded by the staff. feedback or complaint is reviewed, analyzed, investigated, resolution decided. This is our side, the organization side. The response is given to beneficiary and action is taken. Beneficiary is aware of complaints, that one is a complaints mechanism, and is confident to give feedback. So that is the general feedback process. And then feedback can be given through many channels. There are both informal channels, informal feedback, which can be face-to-face when we meet at some monitoring visit, or it can be in organized group discussions, or it can be by filling out some monitoring report. And then there's also formal feedback that can be through mail or through a phone call system. It can be through radio, or through a help desk if it's very well structured. So there are different channels. The important thing is that they have to be there, and the community have to know that they're there and that they can use them. When we design those channels, we need to be aware and examine whether the community has proper access to those channels. We even, in the ideal world, also ask communities, how do you prefer? Which channels do you prefer? Which way do you prefer for us to receive the complaints in the best way? Do community trust those channels that we set up? And do they feel that those are safe in the current context? Also consider if anyone may be excluded from the channel, how to avoid such kind of exclusion. These are some of the things that you can consider when developing the complaints mechanisms. Is it accessible to people with the special needs? Is it available in the time of the day when communities have time to go and put complaints, or only during their working hours? Is it in a place that everyone can access? Is it in a way that people with the low literacy can access, or do you have to be able to read and write to access? Is it accessible both for men and women? Is it accessible to all ethnic groups, also in terms of language? Is it accessible to anyone independently of their socioeconomic status? Do you need some special kind of technology to access, or can anyone come and access? Language. So some places there are many different languages are spoken. We need to make sure that anyone can access independently of which language they speak. So reporting on complaints. This is a very simple template which is part of the quarterly and annual reporting template of Adra Denmark. You will see the reporting template tomorrow. But this section goes into it, and that is because we need to be able to document that we are collecting complaints and documenting them. So since we are CHS certified, this is one of the things that they are looking very much into, across all organizations, because all organizations have struggled with complaints mechanisms and having them working appropriately. So every quarter and every year you will be asked about this in the reporting template. So the best way is to have some system where you collect systematically the complaints that you receive. If you receive no complaints, it's worthwhile investigating why. Because none of us are perfect, and there will always be something that can be improved. So if no one ever complains or gives you any feedback, then you might question whether communities know what they're doing. So it's good to be aware and follow up constantly. Are communities still with us? And are they just happy with everything we do? Then it's great. But they might have contributions. We can call it that instead of complaints. Some people don't like that word of complaints. Okay, so that's what I had about safeguarding and complaints. Yes?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the terminology used.
Uh-huh.
We are here mainly looking at complaints. How about if people are giving us feedback? How are we going to capture it?
Yes.
Positive
I
and
would
be positive.
Positive feedback.